I'm doing the TED Talk on perception. My initial perception of Amy was that she is obviously a high society person. You know, she is an influence on those around her. She's speaking at what looks like a convention, but she came off very anxious in the speed that she was talking. It was hard to follow sometimes, and with having such a high society role, you want to make sure they look confident. And I didn't get that from her at first. She kind of fluctuated in and out. But going along with question number two, my perception did change of her throughout it. I feel like there are moments where she was very confident, and you could tell, like in the PowerPoints, she already knew exactly what she was going to tell everybody for the experiments, and not only that, but how she spoke to people. The language was that she sat there and went slide by slide by slide and explained everything. There was nothing I felt was over anybody's head. I felt like the language that she used was not medical terminology. It wasn't something so complicated that nobody was able to follow. It was very just basic, where everybody could understand. Because had she just used medical terminology, then there could be like a fourth of the group that would understand that and take away from it. But then you'd have a whole another group that wouldn't. So I think that the language part, she did very well, despite how quickly she was talking. I feel like everybody grasped the concept of what her speech was about, especially, when at the end, which is where my perception really changed. She used motivational speaking. And so that is a different kind of language. It's not facts and evidence and examples and science. It's personal, and that captivates people in a totally different way. So I think that as she went on, it did get better, and I think the language that she used was wonderful. Nonverbal behaviors she used as examples. Power posing. She states that if you are going to a high stressful situation, and for 2 minutes you do a power pose, say hands on your hips, standing tall, that will lower your cholesterol and you'll go in more confident. Or if you're nervous, it's going to be very obvious. You're going to have your hands wrapped around your stomach and just slumped, or your hand on your neck, uncomfortable. She did an experiment based off of those poses. She had a group of people do the high power pose, and she had a group of people do the low power pose for 2 minutes. And then, they went in and they saw how it affected people in an interview. Afterwards, they swabbed their cheeks, and they were able to get the cortisol levels of before and after, and and testosterone, and how it affected them just by doing a 2-minute power pose. I think her examples are really good and detailed. And then, how did the message relate to what you read in the textbook? So, obviously, a lot of textbook is in this area of the book is about nonverbal communication, which is what a lot of her speech was about, and examples of that. She discussed the different physical and behavioral ways that people can communicate with nonverbal communication. The specific experiment where they hosted a job interview, seeing how powerful social situations determine someone's nonverbal communication. Prior, the candidates would go into a lab and they would do either a positive or a negative power pose for 2 minutes. And then they'd have judges waiting in a room. And they would take the person after that 2 minutes, place them in the room, make it a very high, stressful interview, a lot of questions, and she'd make sure that everybody that was the judges were very, straight-faced. They didn't show any emotion, which makes it so much more stressful. They were recorded. They had a lot of questions, and they were judged. So afterwards, they gave that video of each candidate to another group of people who were blind to the hypothesis, and they watched the tapes, and they determined just based off what they saw who they would hire and who they wouldn't. Point of that being how body language and presence affect what you're trying to give in an interview. Say, if you are very communicative, but you're like slumped, it doesn't matter because it's just it just shows like in your body language how uncomfortable you are. But if you're standing there and you're confident, you're sitting up, and then you have a higher success rate of getting hired. It really showed like who could establish social control and who couldn't, which is what the book talks about too in chapter 5. It really, I think, almost just drew a picture for what the book was talking about for non-verbal communication. Just how, if you do this social experiment and you give them high stressful situations and you beforehand, do your power posture, it really does bring a positive effect when you go into that room, even if it's a high stressful situation, even if the judges are blank faced. Your cortisol is lowered, and so you're able to control your nervousness. But yeah, besides that, my cited work. Oh, sorry, I missed the last one. I liked the TED Talk. I thought it was very informational. It was a lot of things I didn't know. I think that it was a good thing to tell people because, that is one thing that everybody struggles with is anxiety or fear. And it's nice to know that there's a way to minimize that before going into something. I didn't like it because, again, I couldn't follow it before the PowerPoints because she was speaking so quickly and just kind of all over the place. And you could tell in the microphone even, she was like gasping for breath sometimes. And so it was just, while I liked the point of it, I didn't like how she presented it with, just, it was, like I said, just really hard to follow. My work cited is Human Communication in Society, and I used chapter 5 mostly, but specifically page 11 and page 108 were my highlights.